So Elon Musk went viral. Do you remember this? For saying his son Xavier died to the woke mind virus by going transgender. Now his son changes his position on transing himself because he realized the medical industry treated him as a commodity or a monetary transaction. Has Elon Musk's lifestyle caused his son to trans himself, or is our defiled culture to blame for that, or both? Let's dive into how reality destroys the transgender ideology, the importance of biblical fatherhood, and the growing far-right narrative of producing more babies at any cost. But first, give us a rating and review, guys. Help us grow and reach more people. The show's been showing up in the top 50, top 75 conservative commentary charts. More people need to hear the message of life and the importance of the family and the church waking up. Give us 5 stars on iTunes podcast. Leave a review. It really helps, okay? Go to Rumble. Make sure you subscribe at YouTube, but the YouTube overlords have tried to wipe out this show before. You know, the 3 strikes kind of thing in 90 days and you're gone. You're done. Okay, happened to my friend Eric Metaxas before. Go to Rumble in case that ever happens and subscribe and help protect the show. And will you join us as becoming an ally of the White Rose Resistance? We are the fastest growing pro-life organization in America because we're waking up the blood-bought bride of Christ, inspiring and mobilizing her to go take back life, give God a reason to show America mercy, and bring about the total abolition of abortion. That's all. Only the church can do it. Go to thewhiterose.life and sign up as an ally. $35 a month. That's it. Okay. You join us on our White Rose app. You get your battle box in the mail to become a pro-life ninja. You get resources, curriculum, training, live calls. And if you join at $70 a month, we call that air support. That's our book club. So you read books with us. Super fun. And then we talk about it live on Zoom. I want you to hang out with me on Zoom, okay? The air support, $70 a month. It means so much to us. You're helping us take back life. We can't do it without you. Go to thewhiterose.life. So much to get into today. Let's get into it. This is the Seth Gruber Show. So this is one of the weirdest stories ever, but unfortunately you're going to see a lot more of these as our culture continues to spin out of control, as our culture continues to not be able to define the most basic concepts, the most basic terms, the most basic words and understandings. The family, gender, sexuality, procreation, marriage, babies, children, family. All of these things have been thrown into chaos because of, really a decades-long attempt to reinvent all of these things, to reshape the world as we know it, and to inject new, modern, discovered meanings into historic Orthodox traditions. This story is such a strange sort of crossing of issues. There's a lot going on here. Let's put it that way. Okay, Elon Musk has done a lot of good. Okay, some think that the only reason we don't have Kamala as a president right now is because of Elon Musk and Joe Rogan, basically getting him elected to defeat Kamala. Okay, super grateful for a lot of the things Elon has said and done. Okay, super grateful that he's brought awareness to the massive underpopulation problem that we have in America. We're just not replacing ourselves. And many other countries, by the way, their underpopulation rate is way worse. But it's not good in America. It's certainly not good. I'm grateful for a lot of that stuff, but there's some stuff about Elon Musk that freaks me out, okay? Some of the stuff, the chip in the brain stuff, right? And just the blending of technology with the human species to kind of create like a superhumans, basically, like with the advanced abilities because of the immersion of technology into the human experiment, into the human experience. But his family is a mess. And it has been for quite some time. And we have to talk about it. Okay, he's I think he's still the richest man in the world. He's certainly the richest pro-natalist. Okay, he's not an anti-natalist. Anti-natalism is it's actually bad to reproduce. It's bad to have children. You should stop having kids. That's anti-natalism. So Elon Musk is a pro-natalist, obviously, right? And he's correctly identified the threat of our underpopulation crisis. You know, you remember he went viral in 2022. Do you remember this? He said, doing my best to help the underpopulation crisis. A collapsing birth rate is the biggest danger civilization faces by far. But what has this meant in his personal life? I mean, you probably all know the answer. Everyone, I think, has seen kind of the headlines of Elon's personal life. He's not married to one woman having a bunch of babies. Okay. He's got at least 14 children that we know of with 4 different women, at least 5 of whom were conceived by IVF. But I think it's probably likely more. At least 5 that we know of those children were conceived by IVF, sometimes involving surrogates, right? With at least one of his former wives or partners. I don't think he marries these women. I think maybe one of them. I can't keep track. There's too many. The children that he had with one of these former women, the children, multiple, that woman did not give birth to. They used a surrogate. Okay. And then they purchased the baby, all right? And there are many dangers our civilization faces. But reproducing like bunnies in and of itself is no way to save the Western civilization that Elon Musk seems to love and want to protect. Like these are fundamental issues of what it means to be human. And when you can't get the fundamentals right, okay, you're not going to major in anything else. Okay, you could triple the size of Gen Z right now, which Elon Musk would love, like massive explosion in the birth rate. But if the natural family is not flourishing, if the nuclear family is in shambles, identity crises, suicidality, gender confusion, pornography addictions, drug overdoses, loneliness, then boosting the birth rate doesn't and cannot save your civilization. We could triple the size of America right now. But if we're still making the same choices that we're making, if the single motherhood rate is the same, if missing fathers in the home is the same, if the drug overdoses, the fentanyl, the porn, the abortions, the transmania, the gender confusion remains the same, then you actually haven't saved your civilization at all. Okay? In Elon's attempt to help solve the underpopulation crisis, he has caused great damage to his own children. And so the story, which I just came out recently, it's quite heartbreaking. His son, Xavier Alexander Musk, is the son who thinks he is a she. He changed his legal name to Vivian Jenna Wilson in 2022 and recently posted about the agony he feels, watch this is wild, about his origins from sex-selective IVF. Sex-selective IVF that his father, Elon Musk, used to create him. This is wild, okay? This weird intersection of like the IVF issue with transgenderism. Come to the last stand, okay? It's almost here. Guys, we're taking back June. We need your help, okay? This is a year before America's 250th anniversary. If there is ever a time to declare life and wake up the church, it's now. June 21st, Calvary Chapel Downey, Southern California. Jack Hibbs, David Harris Jr., Steve Dace, John Amanchukwu, and so many more that we haven't even announced yet, okay? Coming soon. We want to bring revival to California, okay? Because California historically is the testing ground for so much of the nation's evil. It's been said, as goes California, so goes the country. If we can send good news out of California, maybe it won't be too late. Come experience this incredible festival of worship, speakers, and most importantly, fellowship with like-minded believers across the country, declaring life for the unborn and for the family and for the future. Go to thelaststand.com and get your tickets today, okay? Thelaststand.com. Tickets are going like crazy, and they're cheaper right now because we're still a little bit further out, okay? Seth10 for 10% off your ticket. Seth10 for 10% off your ticket sale. thelaststand.com. As we announce more of these speakers, you're going to have serious FOMO, okay? Don't wait. Just get it now. Join me for an incredible transformational day on June 21st. Right before the anniversary of the overturning of Roe versus Wade, to declare that June is Life Month, not Pride Month, and to mobilize the church to end abortion. thelaststand.com. We will see you this June. So here's what Xavier Alexander Musk, who calls himself Vivian, put on one of these social media sites, Blue Sky or whatever. He said, "My assigned sex at birth was a commodity that was bought and paid for." He said, "So when I was feminine as a child and then turned out to be transgender, I was going against the product that was sold." Wow. He says, "That expectation of masculinity that I had to rebel against all my life was a monetary transaction." A monetary transaction. He puts in all caps again. A monetary transaction. And a previous version of this post said, "How the F is this legal?" Wow. So do you understand that I think 20-year-old Xavier Alexander Musk, who believes that he is a she named Vivian, he is accusing his father, Elon Musk, of sex-selective in vitro fertilization to assure that he was assigned male at birth. It's like, wow. By the way, just so you know, like, Canada, India, this is illegal. Using IVF for sex selective is illegal. IVF is not illegal in Canada, but using IVF to be sex selective is illegal in Canada. Our evil top hat that is seemingly worse on almost everything. Isn't that wild? That's illegal in Canada. And so this is, I want a boy, right? So make sure it's a boy, right? And if it's not, well, then we got to discard the baby or perpetually put them on ice and freeze them in labs because, do you remember that story of Paris Hilton a couple years ago? Do you remember that? It was wild. Paris Hilton has like dozens and dozens and dozens of frozen male fetuses, unborn little babies in labs because she keeps getting boys. And she's like, "I'm trying to get a girl. I'm trying to conceive a girl. What the heck?" Like, okay, like that's totally legal in America. You can just perpetually create children as long as you've got the money for it, for in vitro fertilization, and make sure you can, like, I want the right eye color. They're like designer babies. This is like a thing, okay? So transgender identifying Xavier Alexander Musk, Elon's son, is explaining just sort of the trauma and identity crisis that he has undergone because he feels like he was a transaction. I mean, and by the way, like, yeah, sort of. Like, he's totally validated in feeling that way. There's more to say on that. I just want to remind you that this is the same son that Elon famously described a year and a half ago. Do you remember this? Like, it was viral at the time because it was the first time the world had heard about this. He was on with Jordan Peterson, and he talked about how his son died, and you're like, wait, what? He said, yeah, the woke mind virus killed him. Watch this clip.
It happened to one of my older boys, where I was essentially tricked into signing documents for one of my older boys, Xavier. This was before I had really any understanding of what was going on, and we had COVID going on, and so there was a lot of confusion. I was told, Xavier might commit suicide if he did.
That was a lie right from the outset.
Incredibly evil, and I agree with you that people that have been promoting this should go to prison. So I was tricked into doing this, it wasn't explained to me that puberty blockers are actually just sterilization drugs. Anyway, and so I lost my son essentially. So they call it dead naming for a reason.
Yeah,
All right. So the reason it's called dead naming is because your son is dead. So my son Xavier is dead, killed by the woke mind virus.
Yeah, pretty brutal to listen to. I mean, it was heart wrenching. Now it was heart wrenching then. The first time I saw it. Do you guys remember that, man? So again, I don't want to shoot my allies in the back. You know what I mean? It's important to build political movements that do engage a large subset of people to get things done in 2025 when people have so many different opinions and ideas about different issues. And so I'm super grateful for how I think the Lord has used Elon to spare us from a baby-killing, child sexually mutilating, throwing pro-life grannies in prison president Kamala Harris. But we've got to get back to fundamentals and foundationals about why are we here? What does it mean to be human? What is sex for? What is a family? What is marriage? If we can't answer these things and we don't have clarity on those and we don't see the purpose for it, and we think we can kind of just reinvent human nature as we see it, that we're not going to preserve or conserve much moving forward. So I want to talk about these things because this is the richest, arguably maybe one of the most influential men on planet Earth, and he wants to obviously get us to leave Earth as well. So all this matters because it shapes the worldviews and opinions of the next generation, right? Especially with this whole Andrew Tate phenomenon, that scumbag, right? Who's what did he say? What did Andrew Tate say the other day on X? He went viral for it. He was weak men are married to one woman, or weak men have all their children with one woman or something. And he's strong men, have multiple, basically just create tons of children with multiple women. And that is what Elon is living. Okay. 4 or 5 women now and 14 children. You think that's good for the kids? Now, obviously, Xavier, okay, this son who thinks that he's a woman, he's explaining how learning that he was sex selectively designed through IVF was traumatic for him because it was at odds with what he felt like was a female identity. However, it is a common experience and story and testimony. If you go do the research, go read the blogs, guys. Go read the personal accounts of hundreds of now adults who learned that they were conceived through IVF and oftentimes in the context of surrogacy. So they were actually, they've never met their birth mother. They were separated from their birth mom the day that they were born, right? Because that's what rich gay dudes have to do. They don't have a uterus. So that's what rich gay dudes do. And in this case, one of Elon's former partners, the women that he had kids with, they used a different woman as a surrogate for the babies. And maybe she had infertility problems. I don't know. Okay, but the point is, you go read the testimonies and stories of adults who describe the identity crisis they've gone through when they learned that they were essentially bought and sold, that they felt like a transaction. That's exactly what Xavier Musk is saying here. Even if you put the kind of the transgender mania aside, that experience is a common one. That of saying, I felt like I was a product because money exchanged hands. Well, yeah, money did exchange hands, right? Guys, there's no such thing as sperm donors or egg donors. Do you know that? Money always exchanges hands. When Pete Buttigieg and his fake husband Chasen decided to have twins, okay? Highly unlikely that they adopted twins. Highly unlikely. It is possible. It is possible. But more than likely, what they did is they bought a woman's eggs. Okay? Or they used one of their sperm and then they bought her eggs and then did IVF and then put the baby for implantation, hopefully, in that surrogate. That's more than likely what happened. Okay, that's not a donation, okay? Those women are paid. Surrogates are paid. Okay. women who quote unquote give their eggs for the conception to occur in a lab through in vitro fertilization, they are paid. Okay? So guess how insane this is. There are countries around the globe right now dealing with like legislative solutions to the IVF surrogacy thing, like IVF with surrogacy. Right? Obviously, married couples can do IVF. We did a whole episode on that recently. I'm talking about when IVF is used in the case of surrogacy. And these countries around the globe, they're struggling to know or oftentimes identify with ease whether this is child trafficking or whether it's surrogacy. Think of how insane that is, right? So like state governments are going, wait. Are you paying this woman for her baby? Is this child trafficking? Or is this surrogacy? Oh, why is it so difficult to tell the difference? Are you starting to see some of the moral dilemmas here? Why? Because it is child trafficking. You know what makes it legal in many cases is when the contract was signed. So if the contract was signed after conception, then it's child trafficking. But if the contract was signed before conception, then what is it? It's surrogacy. But first, go to everylife.com and get your pro-life baby wipes, diapers, baby washes. We need all those having the most babies, that would be pro-life people, to only buy their baby stuff from pro-life companies. Wouldn't it be great if like all of us conservative Christians having all the babies like bankrupted the major pro-abortion companies because the left isn't having very many babies, and then all of us only shop at pro-life companies in alignment with our values? Wouldn't that be good for the culture? Please go to everylife.com, promo code Seth10, Seth10, Seth10 for 10% off your first order. Let them know that we sent you. That supports the Seth Gruber, that supports us here at the show and the White Rose Resistance. Okay? And then you get 10% off your first order. You get a subscription. It comes straight to your house. My wife and I love it. And plus, I know the founders of the company. They're believers. They're Christian. They're involved in their community, in their church. They're having babies. They're amazing people. Okay? And so if you're sick and tired of like woke Amazons and woke Target and all these companies, stop giving them your money. Okay? Huggies, Coterie, what are the other ones? All of them are pro-abortion. Did you know that? Isn't that crazy? So don't get your baby wipes and diapers from pro-abortion companies. Join me at everylife.com to get all your baby needs. Everylife.com, promo code Seth10. And thank you, EveryLife, for being bold, unapologetically defending unborn babies and for supporting the Seth Gruber Show. Only an idiot could tell you that the morality or ethics of an act, it depends upon when the contract was signed. Like, the dignity of that child is completely separate from how you planned to create him. If the child has a right to life, they have a right to life. If the child has a right to their mother and father, they have a right to their mother and father. That right doesn't come and go based off of when you planned to deny them of that right. So if you plan to deny them of their right to life or their right to a mother and a father, and you sign a contract to codify that before they're created, it's surrogacy. If you sign a contract to violate their right to their mother and or father or both after they're conceived, then it's child trafficking. It's illegal. What? So just so you understand how insane all that is, like that's a perfect example to illustrate how we fundamentally know at a base level that this is totally wrong. It's totally wrong to purchase human beings, right? So Katie Faust, our good friend, tweeted in response to this. She said, Elon Musk's son voices what many IVF kids feel. She says, like they were designed and commodified. 75% of fertility clinics offer genetic screening. Whoa. Guys, that's 3/4 of fertility clinics offer genetic screenings. 73% offer sex selection. Some screen for eye color. 90+% of IVF embryos are undesirable and thus destroyed. How is that legal? Indeed. So Xavier Musk's experience is very common and a totally legitimate way to feel. Totally legitimate. Hey, money exchanged hands. It feels like I was a transaction. Yeah, that is how you were treated. That is screwed up. Maybe that shouldn't be legal, okay? But the tragedy of this story is that Elon has failed to see thus far how his own choices have contributed to his son being lost to the woke mind virus. The unnatural, anti-family lifestyle that Elon chooses to embrace, including his decision to use IVF and surrogacy to purchase babies, has led to his son's identity issues, has contributed to his son's misery today. That's the real tragedy of this story, actually, is that while our multi-billionaire hero of Western civilization trying to save us from depopulation, Elon Musk, is out there trying to save America, he's destroying his family. When Elon says that we need to save our civilization by having more babies, our first question ought to be, what kind of civilization? What kind of civilization are we preserving, or are we advancing? I mean, I guess I'm saying, were the social contract theorists right that we just pop out of the ground like mushrooms with no obligation or duties to each other? Do you know social contract theory? It's very Rousseauian. You know Jean-Jacques Rousseau, right? His book Emile or On Education, all of his books that fomented the French Revolution. Rousseau's like idealistic natural man, like our original state of nature, when uncorrupted by society, man, and religion, is like a make peace, make love not war, like forest hippie that like pets squirrels in the forest and pleasures himself whenever and however he feels it, and that the only reason that we have conflict and basically sin, right? All of the Enlightenment thinkers don't know how to talk about the idea of sin, but they're trying to struggle with it anyways. And basically, the reason that things went to hell in a handbasket, the reason that society fell apart, or that we have problems, is because we had this idea of personal ownership and responsibility. We had this idea that, like, after we sleep with a woman, if we build a house and we take her into the house and we call her our wife and we call the home our home and we call the property the home is on our property and we begin to have children, Jean-Jacques Rousseau and many of the Enlightenment thinkers viewed that as our original sin, right? If we hadn't decided to own things and start a family, but we had just orgasmed and like just let the women do whatever they want with the babies and not take responsibility and just go around, you know, just, hey man, make love not war, this sort of like Edenic hippie. If we had been able to stay there, then we would have no problems in our culture or politics. So our original state of nature, like in nature, uncorrupted, is a beautiful, Edenic, perfect, unflawed, sinless thing. It was only by like taking on duties and responsibilities, obligations, and such that we put like a weight on our shoulders, man. And society destroyed me, man. Okay, it's like really kind of dumb. That it's a little bit like Musk, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, is that if we believe that we don't have any kind of obligations or duties to our family first, that this is one woman after another, more babies, and by the way, not actually protecting your children's rights by marrying the woman that you had babies with to create a family, to create stability, to create love, like that if we don't do that, then we kind of just believe in this Rousseauian dream of no obligations or duties. Now, I don't want to come off as like, you know, overly simplistic. It's really cool how Elon's on the road with his younger kids and takes them around and stuff like that. That's cool. But like, you know, his familial choices are not healthy. they're not good, and they don't reflect a sense of obligation and duty. Okay, his sort of vision of saving Western civilization by having a ton of babies at any cost is not a good vision. Okay, like anyone could do that. By the way, Jean-Jacques Rousseau did that. Okay, he had babies. I think he abandoned all 5 of his children. Okay, but he was procreating. Okay, like that. Just reproducing at any cost is not a good vision to save Western civilization. But the social contract theorists, of which Jean-Jacques Rousseau was one, believed that we kind of popped out of the ground like mushrooms, and we were completely disconnected from the world around us, that we did not have obligations or duties to anyone or to anything. Okay, our only obligation is to ourselves. But what happens when everyone lives like that, by the way? It's murder, betrayal, adultery, right? When everyone lives like that, my only obligation is to myself. Well, okay, then you just end up killing each other, right? Because what you're trying to do is violating my liberty, well, meaning libertinism, not true liberty. You know, your choices are hindering my freedom to live out my choices, and my choices are hindering your freedom to pursue your choices, and it's just chaos, right? It's just chaos. So the social contract theory or theorist said, because of that insanity and chaos, men come together and create social contracts in order to sort of protect the veneer of civilization, so we don't just descend down into like animalistic behaviors, right? Basically, you don't do unto me, so I won't do unto you. It's sort of the golden rule flipped upside down. Okay, so does that explain human nature? Does that explain who we are? Were the social contract theorists right that we pop out of the ground with no obligations or duties to each other? Because what would happen if everyone lived according to the philosophy of social contract theory? More heartache, more brokenness, more loneliness, more bitterness, more depression, more child abandonment. The list never ends. Okay. This is why G.K. Chesterton has this great line. He says, God chooses ordinary men for fatherhood to accomplish his extraordinary plan. Like, the presence of a father is so powerful, right? And I think Elon's trying to be a present father to as many kids as he can, but his lifestyle choices, his family choices simply don't allow him to, not with 14 kids from 4 different women. I mean, it's like, how do you maintain balance and health and emotional health with that many different families, different moms, all ripped apart? It's chaos, right? But the presence of a father is so powerful because it's the smallest political unit. I mean, that's why Obama's Father's Day message from 2008, he's like, when you have missing fathers, then everything goes to hell. He sounds like a common sense conservative. It was like a famous message at the time. Today, he wouldn't be allowed to give it in today's Democrat Party. But he was just like, when fathers are missing, that's the #1 indicator of crime, of drug use, of all this stuff, of poor educational performance, everything. So it's important to have fathers in the home, right? We know from the social science that when fathers live under the same roof with their married wife in a low conflict marriage, and raise their children as a married husband and wife with children in the same home, that young daughters' puberty, right? Young daughters' first menstrual cycle actually begins later than when there's single mother family, recurring live-in boyfriends, or stepfathers. Did you know that? That this is just like the social science. It's absolutely phenomenal. When there's recurring, rotating live-in boyfriends, a single mother, or stepfathers. So what does that mean? It means that those young women, those young daughters, have either no male in the house or they have a non-related male in the house. That they can and often do begin puberty 12 to 18 months earlier than daughters who live in the same home as their married biological mother and father. Like, isn't that just think about that for a second. Isn't that fascinating? The power of just the presence of a father, okay? But when you have 4 different baby mamas, okay, and kids all around the country. You simply cannot be the kind of father that God has called you to be. Now, obviously, people make bad decisions. They screw up, right? Like, I understand. And so you try to do the best that you can. But to continue making these choices, as Elon has, it has a lot of damage for children in the next generation, which begs the question again. If Elon believes that we should have a ton of babies to stop the depopulation and to save civilization, what kind of civilization are we creating? Okay. If we have duties and obligations because we don't bring ourselves into the world, right? Why? Because we're born into a family. We're born into a tribe. We're born into a people, a community that raised us, fed us, taught us, loved us, wiped our butts and changed our clothes. Then we owe a certain obligation to them, okay? We don't just pop out of the ground like mushrooms. We don't. You did not bring yourself into this world. You did not conceive yourself. You did not change your diapers, and you did not feed yourself, okay? We come into the world existing, thriving, and surviving because others took care of us. And historically, that has always been the family of the people who created those children. So we have certain obligations. And the fathers and mothers who engage in this act called sex, they have obligations and duties to the product of their sexual decisions, children, human beings, the next generation. It goes both ways, okay? It's not just that we owe obligations and duties to our family who brought us into the world and cared for us. Parents have obligations and duties to the children they bring into the world. And our first obligation and duty that we have is to our family. French philosopher Bertrand de Juvenal had this interesting little quip saying that social contract theories are the views of childless men who must have forgotten their childhood, right? Did you forget that someone wiped your butt and fed you? Okay, so there's no such thing as social contract theory because you didn't pop out of the world as an amoral, detached, unbiased relativist that just happened to appear. You're only here because of others, and therefore you have an obligation and duty, yes, to society, yes, to, the tribe that you were born into, but firstly to your family who brought you into the world. Elon has forgotten this. And in his attempt to save Western civilization from collapse, he has collapsed his own family. And that's the most heartbreaking thing of all, I think. And I'm going to continue to celebrate the good things that he does to bring awareness to corruption, to, put more tax dollars back into the hands of Americans, eliminating all this government waste through DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. Love it. There's good things. Okay, I'm not just a negative Nancy over here. But if we can't get the family right and our duties and obligations to our family first, and that actually you should sacrifice in order to protect your family and the needs of your children and the rights of your children, then long-term, we're not fixing much. Long-term. Of course, there's a ton of short-term wins that are happening right now under the Trump administration and with Elon. It's super cool. Long-term, what kind of civilization are we saving? Are we preserving? Are we advancing? Are we putting forward for the next generation? And if it's a civilization based off of the sexual and familial choices of Elon Musk, then the prospects look pretty bleak, folks. The prospects look pretty bleak. I want to end with this because I've been reading more and more Chesterton, and I don't know if there's anyone more prescient in the 20th century than Chesterton, to be perfectly honest with you. And you, in his book Orthodoxy, which is really one of those books you should read once a year, he talks about the maniac, the insane people, and then he compares elements of the maniacs to elements of liberal modernity and the expert scientific class. And he observes that there seems to be a lot of similarities between those in the madhouse and our liberal higher science, super high IQ master planners. It's quite fun reading. It's quite interesting. But he says what actually is the chief mark and element of insanity? We may say in summary that it is reason used without root, reason in the void. The man who begins to think without the proper first principles goes mad. He begins to think at the wrong end. Yeah. Do I need to unpack that? That just like punch you in the face. He says, what is actually the chief mark of insanity? We can say in summary, it is reason used without root, reason in the void. The man who begins to think without the proper first principles goes mad. He begins to think at the wrong end. What does that mean? It means that if you don't have foundational, fundamental first principles, by the way, like everyone operates off of some kind of first principles, okay? Everyone has them. Such as that children deserve a mother and father. That family is the best institution for human flourishing. Okay? That children have a right to a mother and a father. Okay? We could name dozens of first principles. When you begin to think without proper first principles, you go mad. You think at the wrong end. I'm suggesting that this sort of new conservatism, it's not conservative at all, but it's becoming very hip in right-wing circles, okay? Whether it's the Andrew Tate phenomenon or Elon Musk, hey, have a ton of babies, save Western civilization. Who cares how many people, how many women you abandon or children that you leave in heartache in your wake? You know, just let's have a ton of babies. What? Okay. They're thinking on the wrong end. They're trying to solve problems by committing the same mistake that led to the problems you're trying to now solve. You're thinking at the wrong end. Okay. If we're going to solve this insanity and madness, we have to return to first principles. And historically, not just biblically, but historically, Western civilization has flourished because of first principles that were based on the sanctity of life, the image of God, and the prioritization of the family. You have duties and obligations to your family. Fulfill those first. Fulfill those first. And that's how society will flourish. That's how children's rights will be protected, right? Chesterton said the most extraordinary thing in all the world is an ordinary man and an ordinary woman and their ordinary children. That is how things will be turned around. You don't have to wait for a political figure to begin fixing those problems. We should be involved politically. One of my goals in my lifetime is to get Obergefell overturned. Obergefell v. Hodges, right? The fictional constitutional right to gay marriage. Yeah. I'm very pro getting involved in politics for good policies. Okay, I get it. But you don't have to wait for politicians to fix those things. You can begin living out those beautiful truths at home with your family, in your house, in your community, at your church now. And when all of us do that simultaneously in our lives and in our communities across the country, simultaneously, that's how cultural revival happens. That's how spiritual revival happens. That's how cultural restoration begins to occur. It starts at home. It always has, and it always will. And Elon's choices and his son Xavier's heartbreak is proof of what happens when you don't start at home, when you don't begin with first principles, when you don't protect the family first. Do you understand now why the left has always put the family under greater control? To redefine it, to reshape it. They understand what a powerful tool, okay, the family can be turned into for social transformation. We have to take back our strategy, and that begins at home.